He stared at the boy, and for the first time in a decade, the great Dominic Sterling looked terrified. The boy had his chin. The boy had his eyes. The boy was exactly 8 years old. Dominic grabbed my wrist, his voice shaking. "Audrey, do not lie to me. I paid for the procedure. I saw the receipt. So tell me, who is the boy?" But he wasn't ready for the answer. He wasn't ready to know that the son he tried to kill was the only thing standing between him and total ruin. The rain in Seattle was relentless that night. It battered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse like gravel being thrown by an angry mob. Inside, the silence was louder than the storm. Audrey sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, her hands trembling as she clutched the thin white stick. 2 lines. It was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life. She had been married to Dominic Sterling for 3 years. They were the power couple of the Pacific Northwest, him, the ruthless CEO of Sterling Dynamics, and she, the supportive, elegant wife who hosted the galas and charmed the investors. But when the heavy oak door creaked open, the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Dominic walked in, loosening his silk tie. He didn't look at her. He walked straight to the liquor cabinet and poured a glass of scotch, neat. "Dom," Audrey whispered. He turned, swirling the amber liquid. His face was a mask of exhaustion and irritation. "Make it quick, Audrey. I have a 6 a.m. conference call with the Tokyo branch. The merger is falling apart. I have news." She stood up, her knees weak. She held out the test. "We're going to have a baby." She expected shock, maybe a moment of hesitation before a smile. She didn't expect him to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a cold, sharp bark of amusement. "A baby," he repeated, taking a sip of his drink. "Now? You think now is a good time?" "There's never a perfect time, Dom. But this is happening. No," he interrupted, his voice dropping an octave. "We are not." He set the glass down with a heavy clink on the marble coaster. He walked over to his briefcase, pulled out a checkbook and scribbled furiously. He ripped the check out and tossed it onto the nightstand. It fluttered and landed face up. 50,000. "That should cover the clinic, the recovery, and a week at a spa to get your head straight," he said, turning his back to her to unbutton his shirt. Audrey felt like she'd been punched in the gut. "Excuse me?" "I'm not repeating myself, Audrey. Sterling Dynamics is in a critical transition. I need a wife who is present, fit, and available for travel. I do not need a wife who is swollen, tired, and distracted by a screaming infant. Get rid of it." "Get rid of it?" Audrey's voice cracked. "This is your child, Dominic. This isn't a quarterly projection you can just delete." Dominic spun around, his eyes flashing with a terrifying intensity. "And I am the CEO of this marriage. I make the decisions. If you want to stay Mrs. Sterling, if you want to keep living in this penthouse, wearing those diamonds, and driving that Porsche, you will handle this. Tomorrow." He walked into the bathroom and slammed the door. Audrey stood there, frozen. The check on the nightstand seemed to glow in the dim light. She looked at the closed bathroom door, then at the check. The man she loved, the man she had devoted her life to, had just put a price tag on their child's life. But the real knife in the heart came the next morning. Audrey woke up early, her eyes swollen from crying. She went downstairs to the kitchen, hoping to talk to him, hoping he had calmed down. Instead, she found a woman sitting at her breakfast table. Jessica, Dominic's executive assistant. Jessica was younger, sharper, and currently wearing one of Dominic's dress shirts over a lacy bra. She didn't even look embarrassed when Audrey walked in. She just smirked, sipping coffee from Audrey's favorite mug. "Oh, good morning, Mrs. Sterling," Jessica purred. "Dom is in the shower. He asked me to make sure you had the appointment details. Dr. Harrison at the Downtown Women's Center. 2:00 p.m. Don't be late." Audrey stared at her. The betrayal wasn't just about the baby. It was everything. The late nights at the office, the business trips. It was all Jessica. Dominic walked into the kitchen, fully dressed in a sharp navy suit. He kissed Jessica on the top of the head, a casual, intimate gesture he hadn't shown Audrey in months. "You're still here?" Dominic asked Audrey, checking his watch. "I thought you'd be packing for the clinic." "I'm not going," Audrey said, her voice surprisingly steady. Dominic froze. He looked at her, really looked at her, with cold indifference. "Then we are done. I had the papers drawn up weeks ago, just in case you became difficult. Jessica has them." Jessica pulled a blue folder from her bag and slid it across the granite island. "Sign them," Dominic said. "Take the settlement, get the abortion, or leave with nothing. No money, no car, no support, and I will make sure no one in this city hires you. You'll be destitute, Audrey." Audrey looked at the papers. Dissolution of marriage. She looked at Dominic, the man who had promised to love her until death. She looked at Jessica, the woman smiling like a cat who got the cream. Audrey reached out, picked up the pen, and signed. "Good choice," Dominic sneered. "Now, about the appointment." "I signed the divorce papers, Dominic," Audrey said, dropping the pen. "I didn't agree to the rest." She turned on her heel and walked out of the kitchen, out of the penthouse, and out of his life. She took nothing but the clothes on her back and the tiny life growing inside her. As the elevator doors closed, she heard Dominic shouting, "You'll be back! You can't survive without me! You'll come crawling back!" She didn't look back. The ballroom of the Plaza Hotel in New York City was buzzing with the kind of quiet, expensive energy that only billions of dollars could generate. It was the annual Global Tech Innovators Gala. Dominic Sterling adjusted his bow tie. He hated these events. He was older now, 42. The grey at his temples made him look distinguished, but the lines around his mouth showed the stress. Sterling Dynamics was successful, yes, but it was stagnant. He needed fresh blood. He needed a partnership with the new rising giant in the industry, Phoenix Solutions. "Have you seen the CEO of Phoenix yet?" Dominic asked Jessica, who was standing beside him. Jessica was now his wife, but the years hadn't been kind to their relationship. The spark born of secrecy had died under the weight of marriage. She was constantly spending money, constantly demanding attention, and they had no children. Jessica didn't want to ruin her figure, and Dominic had stopped asking. "No one has seen the CEO," Jessica snapped, checking her phone. "They say she's a recluse, probably some old hag who got lucky with a patent." "Keep your voice down," Dominic hissed. "We need this deal." Suddenly the lights in the ballroom dimmed. A spotlight hit the top of the grand staircase. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed, "please welcome the founder and CEO of Phoenix Solutions, Ms. Audrey Vance." Dominic dropped his champagne flute. It shattered, splashing expensive vintage brute onto his polished shoes, but he didn't move. At the top of the stairs stood a woman who looked like Audrey, but evolved. She was wearing a blood-red gown that hugged curves he didn't remember her having. Her hair, once kept in a modest bun, cascaded in golden waves down her back. She wore diamonds, but they looked different, sharper, modern. She descended the stairs with the grace of a queen and the predator gaze of a lioness. That's her," Jessica gasped, clutching Dominic's arm. "That's the ex-wife. I thought she was dead or working at a diner in Idaho." Audrey reached the bottom of the stairs and was immediately swarmed by reporters and investors. She handled them with a dazzling smile and sharp wit. Dominic watched, mesmerized and horrified. The woman he had thrown out like garbage was now the most powerful person in the room. He had to talk to her. He pushed through the crowd, dragging a reluctant Jessica with him. "Audrey!" he called out. She turned. Her eyes landed on him, and for a second the smile didn't waver. It just turned cold. "Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice smooth as velvet. "And Mrs. Sterling? What a surprise." "Audrey, what is this?" Dominic stammered. "Phoenix Solutions. You?" "Amazing what a woman can do when she's not being told to handle it and get out of the way," she said, sipping her water. "I assume you're here for the partnership deal?" "We need to talk," Dominic said, regaining his composure. "Privately." "My schedule is very full," Audrey said, checking a diamond-encrusted watch. "But, I suppose for old time's sake, meet me in the VIP lounge in 10 minutes. She walked away, leaving a trail of expensive perfume that smelled like victory. 10 minutes later, Dominic entered the private lounge. He expected to find Audrey alone. Instead, he found her sitting on a velvet sofa, and sitting next to her, playing on a tablet, was a boy. The boy looked up as the door opened. Dominic felt the air leave his lungs. It was like looking in a mirror from 30 years ago. The dark hair, the sharp jaw, the intense, ice-blue eyes that were the trademark of the Sterling bloodline. The boy was wearing a miniature tuxedo. He looked about 7 or 8 years old. Audrey looked up, her expression unreadable. She placed a protective hand on the boy's shoulder. "Noah, honey, why don't you go play in the other room for a minute?" "Okay, Mom," the boy said. His voice, it even sounded like Dominic's. As the boy walked past Dominic, he paused and looked up. "Nice tie," the boy said, then vanished into the adjoining suite. Dominic stood frozen. His heart was hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He turned to Audrey, his face pale. "Who is he?" Dominic whispered. Audrey took a sip of her drink, unbothered. "That's Noah. I can see that. But who is he? Who is his father?" Audrey raised an eyebrow. "Does it matter? You made it very clear you didn't want children. You paid $50,000 to ensure that." "The math," Dominic said, stepping closer, his aggression rising. "He's 8. We divorced 8 years ago. You were pregnant when you left." "I was," Audrey said calmly. "You took the money," Dominic shouted. "You took the check." "I took the check," Audrey corrected, standing up to meet his gaze. "And I used it to start Phoenix Solutions. I didn't use it for a clinic. I used it to build an empire so my son would never have to rely on a man like you." Dominic staggered back. "He's mine. Biologically. Perhaps," Audrey said, her voice dripping with disdain. "But a father, no. You fired him before he was even born, remember?" "Does he know?" Dominic asked, his voice trembling. "Does he know who I am?" Audrey smiled, a cruel, beautiful smile. "He knows his father is dead." "You can't do this," Dominic growled. "I have rights. He is a Sterling. He is the heir to my company." "He is a Vance," Audrey snapped. "And he is the heir to my company, which, looking at your stock prices, is worth triple yours. You threw us away, Dominic. You don't get to claim him just because you need a legacy." "I will take him," Dominic threatened, stepping into her personal space. "I have the best lawyers in the country. I will prove paternity. I will take him, and I will destroy you." Audrey didn't flinch. She leaned in close, whispering in his ear, "Try it. But be warned, Dominic. I'm not the crying girl in the kitchen anymore. If you declare war on me, I won't just beat you. I will buy you, dismantle you, and sell you for scrap." She pulled back and checked her watch. Now get out. My son has a piano lesson. Dominic stormed out of the room, his mind racing. He had a son who looked exactly like him, a son who was being raised by his enemy. He pulled out his phone and dialed his lawyer, Sarah Jenkins. Sarah, he barked into the phone, get a private investigator. I need everything on Audrey Vance and a boy named Noah. And prepare a custody filing. I want full custody. On what grounds? Sarah asked. On the grounds that she stole my son, Dominic lied. He hung up. He looked across the gala floor at Jessica, who was drunkenly flirting with a waiter. He felt a wave of disgust. He had traded Audrey and his son for that? No. He would fix this. He was Dominic Sterling. He always got what he wanted. But he had no idea that Audrey was waiting for this. In fact, she had been planning this moment for 8 years. The drive back to the Sterling estate was suffocating. Dominic sat in the back of the limousine, staring at the digital file his private investigator had just sent to his tablet. Photos of Noah. Noah winning a junior chess tournament. Noah playing a cello recital. Noah laughing with Audrey at a park in Central Park. Every image was a dagger. The boy wasn't just existing, he was thriving. He was a prodigy, seemingly sculpted to be the perfect heir, and he had done it all without a drop of Sterling influence. Are you honestly going to pursue this? Jessica asked, breaking the silence. Her voice was shrill, grating against Dominic's nerves. She poured herself another drink from the limo's bar, her hand shaking slightly. He is my son, Jessica, Dominic said, not looking up. He is a threat, Jessica snapped. You saw her. Audrey is vindictive. She planted that boy there to humiliate us, and now you want to bring him into our home, into my life. Dominic finally looked at her. In the dim light of the passing street lamps, Jessica looked haggard. The beauty that had once tempted him away from his marriage now seemed synthetic, plastered on with expensive creams and surgeries. Your life? Dominic laughed darkly. Jessica, everything you have, this car, the jewelry, the house, is because of my company, a company that needs a successor. You haven't given me one. Jessica flinched as if slapped. That's low, Dom, even for you. It's the truth. We are going to court, and you are going to play the role of the loving, supportive stepmother. If you can't do that, well, the prenup is quite clear about what happens if we divorce. Jessica went silent, but her eyes narrowed. Dominic turned back to the window, missing the look of pure venom she shot at the back of his head. Jessica wasn't going to let some 8-year-old ghost from the past steal her fortune. The next morning, the war began in earnest. Dominic didn't wait for a polite meeting. He unleashed his legal team, the Wolves, as they were known in Seattle business circles. By 9 a.m., a process server ambushed Audrey outside the Phoenix Solutions headquarters. Paparazzi, tipped off by Dominic's PR team, were waiting. Flashbulbs exploded like fireworks as the server handed Audrey the thick envelope. Custody petition. Emergency motion for paternity testing. Dominic watched the live feed from his office on the top floor of Sterling Tower. He expected Audrey to look flustered, maybe cry. He wanted the world to see the cracking facade of the Ice Queen. Instead, Audrey took the envelope, looked directly into the nearest camera lens, and smiled. It was a terrifying smile. She didn't say a word. She just handed the envelope to her assistant and walked into her building, her head held high. She's not scared, Dominic muttered to himself. She should be, said Sarah Jenkins, his lead attorney. She was a shark in a Chanel suit. We have the narrative. You are the grieving father who was lied to. She is the bitter ex-wife who hid a child to spite you. The courts hate parental alienation. We can get you 50% custody within a month. Maybe full custody if we prove she's unfit. She's a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, Dominic noted. It will be hard to prove she's unfit. She's a single mother running $1 billion empire, Sarah countered. That means she's busy. We argue neglect. We argue she prioritizes profits over the boy. We argue that Noah is being raised by nannies. It sounded like a solid plan, but Dominic couldn't wait for the court date. He needed to see the boy again. According to the PI report, Noah attended the exclusive Blackwood Academy on the outskirts of the city. Against Sarah's advice, Dominic had his driver take him there at 3 p.m. He parked his black SUV across the street from the school gates. He wasn't going to kidnap the boy, he just wanted to watch. The bell rang, and a sea of uniformed children poured out. Dominic scanned the crowd, his heart racing. Finally he saw him. Noah was walking alone, carrying a backpack that looked too big for him. He wasn't running around like the other kids. He was reading a book as he walked. Dominic rolled down the window. The urge to call out was overwhelming. Noah. Suddenly, a sleek silver Audi pulled up to the curb. Audrey didn't get out. Instead, a tall, muscular man in a suit got out of the passenger side. Security. He opened the back door for Noah. But before Noah got in, he stopped. He looked across the street, straight at the black SUV. Straight at Dominic. The boy didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just stared, his blue eyes piercing through the distance with an intensity that chilled Dominic to the bone. Then, Noah climbed into the car. Dominic's phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I see you, Dominic. Stalking a child is a felony. Do it again, and I'll have a restraining order before you can blink." Dominic gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. She was always one step ahead. But he wasn't backing down. He threw the phone onto the passenger seat. If she wanted a fight, she would get a war. The courtroom was sealed to the public, a favor Dominic had called in from an old golf buddy who happened to be the Chief Justice. The air inside was stale and tense. Audrey sat on the left, looking immaculate in a white power suit. She looked like an angel of vengeance. Noah was not present. The judge had allowed him to stay in school, sparing him the circus. Dominic sat on the right, flanked by Sarah and 2 other lawyers. Jessica sat behind him, wearing a modest pastel dress and a strand of pearls, her supportive wife costume. "Your Honor," Sarah began, standing up. "My client, Mr. Sterling, was defrauded. He was told his child was terminated. For 8 years, he has been denied his fundamental human right to be a father. Ms. Vance has hidden his heir." "Objection," Audrey's lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named Mr. Cole, interrupted. "Use of the word heir suggests this child is property. Ms. Vance protected her son from a man who explicitly paid for his elimination. We have the check. We have the bank records." Cole held up a photocopy of the $50,000 check Dominic had signed 8 years ago. The courtroom went silent. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Miller, peered over her glasses at the evidence. "Mr. Sterling, did you write this check?" "I did, Your Honor," Dominic said, standing up. His voice was steady, rehearsed. "But I was under extreme duress. The business was failing. I was young and foolish. I thought it was what we needed. I have regretted it every day since." It was a lie. He hadn't thought about it once until he saw the boy. But he was a salesman, and he sold the regret well. "Regardless of the past," Judge Miller said, rubbing her temples, "the court prioritizes the interest of the child now. And a child deserves to know their father. I am ordering a DNA paternity test to be conducted immediately at the court-approved facility. Results will be expedited. We reconvene in 48 hours. The gavel banged. As everyone filed out, Jessica lingered behind. She told Dominic she needed to use the restroom, but instead she slipped into a side corridor. She pulled a burner phone from her purse and dialed a number. "It's happening," she whispered. "The test is tomorrow morning at the LabCorp on 4th. I don't care how much it costs. The result needs to be negative or inconclusive. Do you understand?" She listened for a moment, then hissed. "I don't care if he is the father. If that brat gets recognized as a Sterling, I lose half my settlement if Dom divorces me. Fix it." She hung up, smoothed her dress, and walked out with a smile. 48, was it? The atmosphere in the courtroom was heavier this time. The envelope sat on the judge's desk. Dominic felt sweat trickling down his back. He looked at Audrey. She was calm, reading a document, completely ignoring him. "The results are in," Judge Miller announced. She tore open the seal. Jessica held her breath, her fingers digging into the wooden bench. "Please let it be negative. Please." The judge scanned the paper. She looked up. "The probability of paternity is 99.999%, Judge Miller read. "Dominic Sterling is the biological father of Noah Vance." Dominic let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Victory. "However," the judge continued, her voice turning sharp, "there is an addendum from the laboratory." Jessica froze. The lab technician reported an attempted bribery incident involving the handling of these samples. Dominic spun around to look at Jessica. Her face had gone pale white. Audrey, on the other side of the aisle, didn't look surprised. She looked amused. "Your Honor," Audrey said, standing up. "My private security team has been monitoring my son's safety closely. We intercepted a communication between Mrs. Jessica Sterling and a lab employee. We have the audio recording." Audrey placed a small USB drive on the table. Dominic felt the room spinning. He looked at Jessica. "You did what?" I didn't," Jessica stammered, standing up. "She's lying. It's a deep fake." "Sit down, Mrs. Sterling," the judge barked. "Mr. Sterling, this reflects very poorly on your household. You claim to want to provide a safe environment for this boy, yet your current wife is actively trying to erase his existence." "I had no idea," Dominic said, his voice rising. "I swear, Your Honor, I knew nothing about this." "Maybe," the judge said, "but it shows your home is volatile. Therefore, I am granting Mr. Sterling visitation rights. But they will be supervised, and Mrs. Sterling is to have zero contact with the child. If she comes within 500 feet of Noah Vance, I will hold you both in contempt of court." "Supervised," Dominic argued. "I am his father. I demand—" "You demand nothing," the judge snapped. "You paid to have him aborted, and your wife tried to falsify his DNA. You are lucky I am letting you see him at all. Visitation starts this Saturday, 2 hours, at a neutral location. Ms. Vance's discretion." The gavel banged again. Dominic slumped into his chair. He had won, but it felt like a loss. He turned to Jessica, his eyes cold and dead. "Get out," he whispered. "Dom, baby, listen." "Get out of my sight," he snarled. "Go back to the penthouse, pack your bags, and get out. If you are there when I get home, I will throw you off the balcony myself." Jessica ran out of the courtroom, sobbing. Dominic gathered his papers and looked across the aisle. Audrey was packing her briefcase. She stopped and looked at him. "Saturday," she said. 10 a.m., the Seattle Aquarium. Don't be late." "I won't," Dominic said. Audrey. "About Jessica." "Save it," Audrey said. "You chose her, just like you chose money over us. See you Saturday, Dominic. Try not to disappoint him again." She walked out. Dominic was left alone in the empty courtroom. He had his son. He had won the battle. But as he thought about the meeting on Saturday, he realized he was terrified. He could handle boardrooms, hostile takeovers, and lawsuits. But talking to an 8-year-old boy who knew his father had wanted him dead? That was a deal Dominic Sterling wasn't sure he could close, and he had no idea that Noah had his own plans for the meeting. The boy wasn't just smart, he was calculating, and he had a test of his own prepared for his father. The Seattle Aquarium was bathed in the cool, blue light of the massive tanks. It was Saturday, 10:00 a.m. sharp. Dominic stood in front of the giant Pacific octopus exhibit, checking his watch for the 5th time. He held a large, gift-wrapped box under his arm. Inside was the latest, most expensive robotic drone kit money could buy. He had read online that 8-year-old boys liked drones. He felt ridiculous. He was a man who negotiated billion-dollar mergers, yet his palms were sweating. Then he saw them. Audrey walked in, wearing casual jeans and a cashmere sweater, looking effortlessly chic. Beside her was Noah. The boy wore a button-down shirt and dark trousers. He looked less like a child going to look at fish and more like a junior associate attending a board meeting. "You're on time," Audrey said, stopping 3 feet away. "That's a start." "I value my commitments," Dominic said, straightening his jacket. He looked down at Noah. The boy was staring up at him with those unsettlingly intelligent blue eyes. "Hello, Noah." "Hello, Dominic," Noah replied. "Not Dad. Just Dominic." It stung more than he expected. I brought you something," Dominic said, holding out the box. "I heard you like technology." Noah looked at the box, then back at Dominic. He didn't reach for it. "Is that the SkyTech Mark IV?" Noah asked. "Yes," Dominic smiled, relieved. "Top of the line." "It has a battery life of only 12 minutes, and the gyroscope calibration is known to be faulty," Noah stated flatly. "I built my own drone last summer, using parts from a discarded toaster and a Raspberry Pi computer. It flies for 25 minutes. But thank you." Dominic's smile froze. He slowly lowered the box. "Right. You built one. Of course." "Go on," Audrey said, crossing her arms. "I'll be at the coffee stand over there. I can see you from here. You have 2 hours." She walked away, leaving Dominic alone with the boy he had rejected. They walked in silence toward the Shark Dome. Dominic felt the desperate need to fill the air. "So, Noah, school? Do you like it?" "It's efficient," Noah said, watching a hammerhead shark glide overhead. "The curriculum is slow, but the chess club is adequate." "I play chess," Dominic offered. "Maybe we can play sometime." Noah stopped walking. He turned to face Dominic completely. The crowd of tourists flowed around them, but the boy created his own bubble of stillness. "Audrey says you are a genius businessman," Noah said. Dominic straightened. "I've had some success, yes. And you make decisions based on ROI, return on investment," Noah continued. "Cost-benefit analysis. That's one way to put it." Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook. He opened it to a page covered in complex, handwritten equations. "I did the math," Noah said, pointing to a figure at the bottom. "Based on inflation and the current value of sterling dynamics, your net worth is approximately $4.2 billion. 8 years ago, you wrote a check for $50,000 to remove me." Dominic felt like the floor was opening up. "Noah, it's complicated. I didn't know you then." "It's not complicated. It's math," Noah said coldly. "You valued your freedom and your company at $4.2 billion. You valued my potential existence at negative $50,000. That is a valuation ratio of 84,000 to 1 against me." Dominic was stunned. He wasn't talking to a child. He was talking to a prosecutor. "I made a mistake, Noah. A terrible calculation." "People make mistakes," Noah said. "CEOs make projections. I have a test for you." "A test?" "If you want to be my father," Noah said, "you have to prove you aren't just a wallet. I have a problem I can't solve." Noah pointed to the notebook. "I am designing a chaotic algorithm for a predictive AI model for Mum's company, but the variable for human error keeps crashing the system. How do you account for irrationality in a logical system?" Dominic blinked. He looked at the notebook. It was advanced coding theory, college level, maybe master's level. He looked at the boy. This was the test. Noah didn't want a dad who could throw a baseball. He wanted a dad who could keep up with his mind. Dominic took the notebook. He took a pen from his inside pocket. He looked at the equation. He remembered his early days, before the suits and the boardrooms, when he was just a coder in a garage. "You're trying to contain the irrationality," Dominic muttered, sketching a diagram. "You can't contain it. You have to isolate it. Create a quarantine variable that accepts the error without letting it touch the core code." He scribbled a solution and handed it back. Noah looked at it. He studied it for a long minute. His face remained neutral, but his eyes widened slightly. "An isolation sandbox," Noah whispered. That works." He looked up at Dominic, and for the first time there was a flicker of respect. "Not bad." "I'm not just a suit, Noah," Dominic said softly. "I built my company from nothing. Just like your mum." "Maybe," Noah said, closing the notebook. "But Mum didn't need $50,000 to do it." The moment was broken by a sudden commotion near the entrance. Dominic's phone began to vibrate violently in his pocket. He ignored it. "Noah, I want to get to know you. Not the math. You." "Why?" Noah asked. "Because," Dominic started, but his phone rang again. And again. It was his personal emergency line. "Answer it," Noah said, turning back to the sharks. "It sounds expensive." Dominic pulled out the phone. It was his COO, Marcus. "What?" Dominic snapped. "Dom, you need to get to a TV or a terminal right now," Marcus was screaming. "The stock is free-falling. Someone leaked the Titan project files. Everything. The blueprints, the patent applications, the internal emails. It's all over the dark web." "What?" Dominic froze. "That's impossible. Only 3 people have access to those files." "Well, one of them talked. The media is calling it the Sterling leak. Our investors are pulling out. We've lost 14% in 20 minutes. If we don't halt trading, we're bankrupt by Monday." Dominic felt the blood drain from his face. Jessica. It had to be Jessica. She was the only one who had access to his home server passwords. She was burning him to the ground. "I have to go," Dominic said, panic rising. "I have to." He looked at Noah. The boy was watching him. "Go," Noah said, his voice dripping with disappointment. "The ROI on your company is dropping. Better go save your money." "Noah, no, this is—" "Time's up anyway," Audrey appeared, stepping between them. She looked at Dominic's pale face. "Trouble in paradise, Dominic." "Corporate sabotage," Dominic gritted out. "I have to go. Audrey, tell him I didn't want to leave." "You always leave, Dominic," Audrey said. "Run along, save your empire." Dominic looked at his son one last time, then turned and sprinted toward the exit. He had to save Sterling Dynamics. It was his life's work. But he didn't know that in less than an hour, the choice between his company and his son would become a matter of life and death. Dominic sped toward Sterling Tower in his SUV, breaking every traffic law in Seattle. He was on a conference call with his board of directors. "Find her!" Dominic roared into the speakerphone. "Find Jessica! She stole proprietary data. I want her arrested. I want her sued into oblivion." "We can't find her, Dom," Marcus replied. "She's boarded a flight to the Cayman Islands, but the damage is done. The shareholders are calling for a vote of no confidence. You need to be here to calm them down." "I'm 5 minutes away," Dominic yelled, swerving around a taxi. Suddenly, another call beeped in. It was Audrey. Dominic ignored it. He was busy saving his legacy. It rang again. And again. "Damn it!" Dominic switched lines. "Audrey, I am in the middle of a crisis. Unless Noah is on fire, do not—" "Dominic!" Audrey's voice was different. It wasn't the confident CEO voice. It was small, terrified, and broken. "You need to come to St. Jude's Hospital, now." Dominic slammed on the brakes, the SUV screeching to a halt in the middle of an intersection. "What? Why?" "It's Noah. We were walking to the car and he just collapsed. He started bleeding from his nose and he wouldn't stop. He's seizing, Dominic. They're taking him into the ICU." The world stopped. The screaming of the board members on the other line faded into a dull buzz. "I'm coming," Dominic whispered. "Dom? Dom, are you there?" Marcus shouted from the other line. "The Japanese investors are threatening to pull the plug. If you don't authorize the liquidation of assets right now, we lose the Asian market. Say the word." Dominic looked at the Sterling Tower looming in the distance, the symbol of his power, the thing he had sacrificed his marriage and his morality for. Then he looked at the GPS. The hospital was in the opposite direction. "Dom, give the order." "Marcus," Dominic said, his voice eerily calm. "Yes?" "Let it burn." "What?" "Let the company burn. I don't care. Do what you want. I'm done." Dominic hung up the phone. He threw it onto the passenger seat. He spun the steering wheel, ignoring the honking horns, and floored the gas toward St. Jude's. When Dominic burst into the ICU waiting room, he found Audrey huddled in a plastic chair, her designer clothes stained with drops of blood. Noah's blood. She looked up, her eyes red and wild. "Where is he?" Dominic gasped, out of breath. "They're stabilizing him," Audrey sobbed. She stood up and hit Dominic's chest with her fists. Weak, desperate hits. "You did this. This is your fault." "My fault? How?" Dominic caught her wrists. "Audrey, talk to me." "It's genetic," she cried, collapsing into his arms. "The doctors, they suspect it's Sterling syndrome, a rare autoimmune disorder. It skips generations. Your father had it, didn't he?" Dominic froze. His father had died young, of a mysterious blood disease. He had never told anyone. I didn't know it could pass to him," Dominic stammered. A doctor in blue scrubs hurried over. "Mr. and Mrs. Sterling?" "Ms. Vance," Audrey corrected automatically, wiping her face. "Is he okay?" "He's in critical condition," the doctor said gravely. "His platelet count has bottomed out. His organs are shutting down because his blood can't clot or carry oxygen effectively. We need an immediate transfusion of compatible platelets and bone marrow stem cells. But he has a rare antigen profile." "I'm his mother," Audrey said. "Take mine." "We tested you while you were in the intake." The doctor shook his head. "You're not a match. The antigen comes from the paternal line." The doctor turned to Dominic. "Mr. Sterling, if you are the biological father, you are his only chance. But we need to do this now. He has maybe an hour before brain hemorrhage sets in." "Take it," Dominic said instantly. He ripped off his suit jacket. "Take whatever you need. Marrow, blood, a kidney. Take it all." "It's a painful procedure without prep," the doctor warned. "We have to drill into your hip bone to extract the marrow immediately. We don't have time for full anesthesia." "I don't care," Dominic snarled. "Just save my son." 10 minutes later, Dominic was lying on a gurney next to Noah's bed. A curtain separated them, but Dominic could see the boy's small hand hanging off the side of the mattress. It was pale, almost translucent. Dominic gritted his teeth as the needle pierced his lower back. The pain was blinding, white-hot agony that shot down his leg. But he didn't scream. He stared at Noah's hand. I paid $50,000 to destroy this, he thought, tears leaking from his eyes. I tried to kill the only thing that matters. The procedure took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of torture. Dominic watched as the bag of his marrow, thick and red, was hooked up to Noah's IV. It's flowing, the nurse whispered. Dominic reached out, his arm trembling, and took Noah's limp hand. It was cold. Fight, Noah, Dominic whispered, his voice cracking. You're a Sterling. You're a Vance. You're too smart to die. Just calculate the odds and beat them, please. Audrey stood at the foot of the bed, watching the man she hated give pieces of himself to save the son she loved. For the first time in 8 years, the ice around her heart cracked. She saw the sweat on Dominic's forehead, the agony in his eyes. He wasn't the CEO right now. He was just a father. As the sun began to set over Seattle, the monitor beeped. Beep, beep, beep. The rhythm was stronger. His vitals are stabilizing, the doctor announced, exhaling a long breath. The graft is taking. He's going to make it. Dominic let out a sob of relief and closed his eyes. The pain in his back was overwhelming, and the darkness took him. Dominic woke up in a private hospital room. He tried to sit up, but his back screamed in protest. Easy, a voice said. Audrey was sitting in the chair next to the bed. She looked tired, but she was smiling. A genuine, small smile. Noah? Dominic asked, his voice raspy. He's awake. He's asking for his laptop, Audrey chuckled softly. He wants to check the code for his drone. He's going to be fine, Dom. Dominic fell back onto the pillows. Thank God. I checked the news, Audrey said, her tone shifting. Sterling Dynamics stock dropped 40%. You've been ousted as CEO by the board. They're bringing in a crisis management team. You lost it all, Dominic. Dominic looked at the ceiling. He thought about his corner office, his private jet. The power. It was gone. I didn't lose it all, Dominic said quietly. No? Audrey raised an eyebrow. No. Dominic turned his head to look at her. I realized my valuation was wrong. I was investing in the wrong asset class. The door opened. A nurse wheeled Noah in. The boy looked pale, but his eyes were bright. Hello, Dominic, Noah said. Hello, Noah. Dominic smiled, ignoring the pain. I heard you gave me bone marrow, Noah said. That is a biologically expensive resource. The body takes weeks to replenish it. It was a good investment, Dominic said. Noah looked at his mother, then back at Dominic. The doctor said you saved my life, Noah said. He paused, calculating. That balances the ledger. The $50,000 debt is cancelled. Dominic laughed, a wet sound. Thank you, Noah. However, Noah added, a mischievous glint in his eye, since you are currently unemployed, Mum says Phoenix Solutions is hiring a consultant for our new AI division. I need someone to help me build the isolation sandbox. Dominic looked at Audrey. She shrugged. We need the best, and unfortunately, you're one of the best. But you start at the bottom, and you report to Noah. Dominic Sterling, former billionaire, looked at his 8-year-old boss. I accept the terms, Dominic said. The open concept office of Phoenix Solutions was very different from the cold, steel and glass fortress of Sterling Dynamics. Here, there were beanbag chairs, whiteboards covered in colorful diagrams, and a hum of creative energy. Dominic sat at a corner desk, not a private office, just a desk. He was rolling up his sleeves, staring at a wall of code on his dual monitors. You missed a semicolon on line 402, a voice piped up from behind him. Dominic turned around. Noah was standing there, holding a juice box. Good catch, boss. Dominic grinned, Fixing the error. I'm still getting used to Python. I was coding in C++ when you were, well, before you were born. Adapt or die, Noah said, taking a sip of juice. That's what you used to say in your interviews. Dominic chuckled. It was true. He had adapted. The transition hadn't been easy. The media had a field day with the fallen king of tech, mocking his demotion from CEO to consultant. He had lost his penthouse, his sports cars, and his spot on the Forbes list. He was currently living in a modest apartment downtown, driving a reliable sedan. But strangely, he slept better now than he had in 10 years. "Dominic," Audrey called out from her office. "Conference room, now." Dominic stood up. "Trouble?" he asked Noah. "Mum's wearing her merger heels," Noah noted, glancing at Audrey's shoes. "It's serious." Dominic walked into the glass-walled conference room. Audrey was standing at the head of the table. On the large screen behind her was a news broadcast. Breaking news: fugitive socialite Jessica Sterling, apprehended in Cayman Islands. Dominic watched as the footage showed Jessica being led into a police car in handcuffs. She looked disheveled, sunburnt, and furious, screaming at the camera. "The authorities recovered the stolen hard drives," the news anchor announced. But her attempt to sell the Titan project data to a rival firm failed when the buyer turned out to be an undercover FBI agent. She is facing charges of corporate espionage, grand larceny, and fraud. Audrey muted the TV. She looked at Dominic. "She's going away for a long time, Dom." Dominic looked at the woman who had ruined his marriage, the woman he had chosen over his family. He felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just a sense of closure. "She made her bad investments," Dominic said quietly. "She has to live with the returns." "Speaking of investments," Audrey said, sliding a folder across the table. "Sterling Dynamics is being liquidated. Their board is panic-selling assets to cover the lawsuits from the data leak. They put the Sterling Tower up for auction this morning." Dominic felt a pang of nostalgia. That building was his dream. "I can't afford it, Audrey. I'm an employee now," he reminded her. "I know you can't," Audrey smiled. "But we can." Dominic blinked. "We?" "Phoenix Solutions is expanding," Audrey said, walking over to the window that looked out over the city. "We need a bigger headquarters, and I happen to know a building that's fully equipped for a tech giant. I'm putting in a bid to buy Sterling Tower." Dominic stood next to her. "You're buying my old company." "I'm buying the shell," she corrected, "and I'm filling it with something better. But I need a COO who knows the building's infrastructure, someone who knows where all the bodies are buried. Interested?" Dominic looked at her. The sun was hitting her face, illuminating the strength and beauty he had been too blind to see 8 years ago. "Are you offering me a promotion?" "I'm offering you a partnership," Audrey said softly. "Strictly business, of course, for now." "And Noah?" "Noah thinks you're adequate as a father," Audrey laughed, which, coming from him, is glowing praise. "He wants you around, Dominic, and I think I do too." Dominic reached out and took her hand. It was warm. "I don't deserve it," he whispered. "I don't deserve either of you." "Probably not," Audrey agreed. "But you can spend the rest of your life earning it." Just then, the door burst open. Noah ran in, waving a tablet. "Dad! Mum! The algorithm worked!" Noah shouted, forgetting his usual composure. "The isolation sandbox contained the error. The drone is flying autonomously." "Dad." He hadn't said Dominic. He said Dad. Dominic felt a lump in his throat, larger than any merger deal he'd ever closed. He scooped Noah up in his arms, spinning the laughing boy around. "That's my boy," Dominic cheered. He looked at Audrey over Noah's shoulder. They stood there, a broken family that had been welded back together by tragedy and forgiveness. Dominic Sterling had lost his title, his fortune, and his reputation. But as he held his son and looked at his wife, he realized he was finally the richest man in the world. Wow. Talk about redemption. Dominic went from a man who put a price tag on his own child's life to a father who gave his own blood to save him. It really makes you wonder, can money ever truly buy happiness? Or is it the things we can't buy that matter the most? I want to know what you think. If you were Audrey, could you have forgiven Dominic after everything he did? Or would you have let him rot in his empty tower? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story touched your heart, or if you just loved seeing Noah outsmart everyone, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.